All right, peace and much love, Zin Uru here. Welcome to the latest installment of Message from the Minista. This week's message from the Minista is Rethink Your World. Rethink your world. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. Rethinking, reinterpreting, reimagining, reseeing, revisioning. What is our world? What is the world? Let's even get into the definition of what the world is. And we're going to realize something that the world is pretty much everything, because even the thoughts that we're thinking are inspired by the spirit, but they still go through the mind, and then the mind creates, so much of what it is our interpretation of what's going on outside of us. And so no matter what the situation is, this is what the hip hop site is all about. It's about our ability, and it's always been about this from day one to now. It's about our ability to look at our environment, look at subjects and objects in our environment, and then reinterpret them in an attempt to express our consciousness, in an attempt to express our spirit. And I would say, I like that word, in an attempt, because what happens is in that attempt to express our spirit, like we want to express our spirit through a song. And then we express our spirit through the song, and then we realize that song is only just a little portion, a little piece. Even though it's the totality of our spirit, it only expresses a little bit of what our spirit is. So we want to write more songs. We want to create more and more and more. And so what happens is when we tap into this is something that we probably tapped in before we even came here in Earth, and that we're continually tapping into because we're creative beings. We are the children of the Creator. So therefore we are creators too. And so what Earth does, what life on Earth does, is it gives us our ability to create, to self-create, to create ourselves. But within that self-creation, we say hip hop is the art of self-creation. Within that self-creation comes the ability to really rethink our world and our place in that world. Who are we in this world? And that's what the hip hop site, this is what the hip hop site is all about. So I want to welcome y'all here. Last week, I remember I was almost done with the message from the minister before I even acknowledged the audience. So thank you all for being here. It is an honor and a privilege every week to be inspired with a message from the minister, and then to know that there's those of you out there viewing this message from the minister. And although there is no such thing as time and space, there is, let me put that precursor there. We're experiencing time and space right now, but in the spirit, there really is no time and space. We exist in all places, in all realities, all at once. We are the wholeness of all that is. We are a wholly integrated people, have an omnipresent power, hip hop. And so no matter where you're at in space, meaning how far or wherever you're at in Earth, I'm here in San Antonio, California, but wherever you're at getting this message, your spirit is here right now. And whatever time it is in the so-called far future, you're watching now. That means we're together in spirit now. It's not so much that you're here or I'm there. We're together in spirit right now. And the reason I like to acknowledge that every week, and the reason that I do that, is because what happens is as I look back, I was thinking about these messages from the ministers and how far they've come. This is number 73. I've missed a few weeks, so this is going on almost 80 weeks of message from the minister in a row. And I just happen to be in a situation right now that affords me this luxury and this burden, this blessing and this burden at the same time, because my father, he's on his way out. He's on his way transitioning into the next step, and so it's given me a lot of time to meditate upon a lot of my journey in life. If those who know me have known me over the years, I move every 3 to 6 months. I move to a new state, a new city, a new home, a new environment. I'm always on the move. But when my father became ill, my dad became ill, it put me at home. I had no choice as a son. This is my duty, what I got to do to help him and my mom out. And so it wasn't really planned this way, but it ended up being this way. And so as this environment started taking shape, I knew I had to reinterpret the environment that was being presented to me. Because all of a sudden now, somebody who's used to going out on tours, somebody who's used to traveling, somebody who's used to moving, throw all my stuff in a car and go and live somewhere for 3 to 6 months, right? Somebody who's used to doing that with that lifestyle, to be planted in one space for a while. At first there was like this anxiety, I had to oh man, now I really got to face some certain things that movie noise takes care of, right? And so I remember we did the Gospel of Hip Hop call all of 2019, and then somewhere in 2020 I began these. I want to say it was 2020. Yeah, it was 2021 that these began, or late 20. I would have to say 20. Yeah. Wow, time flies, y'all know that. But looking back at it, I remember that in the beginning, I would visualize it. It would take me a while to visualize seeing the audience here. And this is what I wanted to share about reinterpreting events, is because a lot of our reinterpretation of events, a lot of our rethinking the world, Rethink Your World, the name of this message from the Minista, is about changing our sight. And a lot of that has to do with unlearning and also relearning, but it also has to do with repetition. Because when we visualize something, the more we visualize it, the more we see it. And so in the beginning, when I would visualize the audience here, I used to sit there, I would visualize, I would take a moment over off to the side here. I would take a moment back at my altar in meditation, and I would really visualize, people being here. And now when I walk out here to do these, as everybody's here already, I see it, I feel y'all, I know y'all are here, I know I'm there with you all. And it's an empowering thing, because it's the ability to reinterpret our environment. What would normally to most people look like, this looks like a living room, but this is a television studio. This is a hip hop archive. This is my hip hop archive. I've talked on all of these subjects, everything that's on the wall, all these books here. This is the only part that the camera sees. There's more to it than this. This is the hip hop archive. This is who I am and what I represent. And this is part of reinterpreting the environment. What the housing market might call a living room, we can call a hip hop museum. When somebody calls a living room, we could call this a temple. This is a temple as well. Ministry, archive, school, and society. This is a mass. I can teach from here. I can minister from here. This is my archive, but the archive is really my memories and my thoughts and my experiences, for real. This is a school, and this is a society of like-minded individuals that we're talking to one another. And this is the creative process and how it goes, I think that in modern spirituality, there's a missing a point of community, okay? And not that they're missing the point, but people want to be individuals and say, I'll cut people off quick in my life. Watch out what you say to me. I don't put up with nobody's BS. I will cut anyone off quick. Negative vibes out of here, and then say, oh, I'm starving. I want community. But then they don't want to get along with nobody, right? So it's interesting, because as a man who's on his spiritual path, I've enjoyed a lot of alone time. I've enjoyed a lot of time to myself to be able to contemplate things and be able to think through things. Especially since the earlier part of my life, like the first 37, 38 years, I was surrounded by people all the time. So I was used to that lifestyle. Then to be cut off from that quick by the universe into a solitary lifestyle, it was very interesting. So I had to make these adaptations. I had to start adapting to my environment. And I realized that, there is a certain draw to wanting to live alone on a spiritual path. But hip hop, the site, produces hip hop, the culture. And the hip hop, the culture is really important, because once we tune into God, we realize that we're tuning into one another. We're tuning into our community. And that to me is why the Temple of Hip Hop became so important to me. Why it's so important to me, because the idea of community just doesn't go away. There's not a meditation that's going to fulfill the void of community. And there is a void of community that we're all experiencing on one level, but I feel that we know that this community could be a lot closer to our hearts and to our minds and to our souls than we think right now. But I don't want to be naive there too, because if we were all living in the same, say this whole housing complex here was completely reinterpreted to the vision that I could have for it. And that this is Hiphopia right outside the house, which it is. But say in my visioning process, as I rethink the world, as I rethink my world, I would say, if this was Hiphopia and Adonis lived next door and Apollo lived over there and Bach lived over there and, Lifted lived over there and Desire and Joey, and we was all living around and Florida's finest and, all the homies, all of us Temple of Hip Hop and then not just the Temple of Hip Hop, but the bigger hip hop community. It's like we had all these homes, right? And that we could cut down the fences and grow longer gardens, and that we could turn some homes into sleeping areas, and some homes into gyms, and some homes into recording studios, and some homes into kitchens, and and we could have all the kids running around, having schools, turn homes into schools, turn some of the buildings around here into schools, just reinterpret this whole event for us as hip-hoppers. We could grow plenty of food where we wouldn't have to. We could create plenty of resources. And that reinterpretation of events, and I started thinking about that, it's like, wow, that's really dope. There's a soul longing in my consciousness, but there would also be problems. There'd be interpersonal problems. But I think that hip hop I really think that we don't need this form of outer society that we've been given, that we've inherited, right? Like the mainstream society that we're really more of a prison planet, or really more of the matrix of this all, where the neighbors, we don't even hardly know each other. Everybody's sketched out by everybody. There's fences, there's darkened windows, there's privacy. And, I grew up in a time and a space where that existed. But it was also great because as kids, we used to ride around our neighborhood and people would have their garage doors open. And then, there was no internet and television was expensive. Like the neighborhood I grew up in, cable was a luxury there, right? And I didn't live in I lived in a lower middle class neighborhood. And I guess it was middle class. I don't know. My parents worked all the time and we were just, scraping by, but we had all the necessities met. But I was raised that was to be, the middle class. But I think, our time and our energy should produce more reward in Hiphopia than what it does in the United States of America currently. Because people are spending a lot of time and they're not getting rewarded for the time and energy they're putting into America. In fact, America is just like a slave driver right now. Like the United States is like, we raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, $5 a gallon for gasoline. Whoosh, whoosh. You're triple your electric bill. Whoosh, whoosh. Shut up, don't complain. Whoosh, whoosh. You can go online and complain. Whoosh. Get to work. Whoosh. And it's like that with the threat of the gun instead of the whip, right? It's the threat of the pistol instead of the whip. Maybe you get pistol whipped, but if you don't pay your bills. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So as we're reinterpreting our environments, we're having to break free of the conditions that we've been put in. See, we've normalized oppression, and the oppressor has normalized oppression. So we're just used to seeing oppression. Like we could talk about movies or TV shows, and it's just all these police TV shows, they just normalize oppression, right? All of the movies about cops, all the TV shows, just think about police alone and how many movies they make about police and how police in all these movies and TV shows break the law constantly because they show you that the police are above the law. And then what they're doing is they're socially conditioning people to want to just think it's okay and normalizing oppressive behavior. And I mean, this goes back to before any of us were born who's watching this. I was born in 1973. They already had police TV like Hawaii Five-0, or I was thinking in the 80s, they had one called Hill Street Blues. They had TJ Hooker. I'm missing a ton of them. Because I didn't watch them, but I know how many of these cop shows were out there. And they normalized oppression. It's just that's how much the movies, like a Marvel movie, normalizes oppression. It normalizes complete and utter government surveillance. What do you think what it is? It's called S.H.I.E.L.D. Like Nick Fury, he works for S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel movies. This guy, this S.H.I.E.L.D., they have access. They are, every person on earth is under complete surveillance in the Marvel movies, right? You ever see that? Like, you don't think about it because it's just there, but it's those underlining themes is why they spend billions of dollars. They don't care about no Thor and Hulk. They know that those cool characters will bring the money in because people are like attracted to the shiny suit of Iron Man, right? You're like, oh, look how cool Iron Man looks. Then you go there, you get your dose of programming where they're telling you that it's okay, and they're completely normalizing a government that is out of control, has everybody under surveillance, and you know, it's wild like that, because what they normalize is they're normalizing colonization. They're normalizing the prison system, the prison planet that people live in, the surveillance system that we live in. They normalize that through Marvel movies. And so when we go outside, that normalization to us, we very seldom look at our outer environment as something that we affect or that affects us. We very seldom look at our outer environment and have the courage, just the courage alone, to rethink our world. Okay? Because the reason the outer environment stays the same is because it's been normalized in us, and it's how our internal creative visualization process works. We've been programmed to creatively visualize what the world wants us to creatively visualize, as opposed to normalizing and getting the habit of visualizing what God wants for us to visualize. What can we create out of this wonderful awakened dream machine that God has created? See, we could sit here all day long and you know, that normal world, they offer Nobel Peace Prizes. Oh, what a great prize, but that's still the world, right? They can offer, Grammys and Emmys. Oh, that's still the world, though. They can offer all the world champion belt, you know, all these things in the world. The world offers all of this validation. And this is a powerful statement. I'm just going to say it and we'll just let it sit for a minute. Because I had this, when I was getting ready for this, I was taking a shower and then the water hit me. And I realized that worldly success is God's punishment for those who ignore God. I mean, that's a shocking statement, and probably pretty much a lot of people might even be triggered or angry to hear that. But worldly success is God's punishment, okay? That's reinterpreting events. Because a lot of us as spiritual people, we're walking around and we're not experiencing worldly success, yet we're experiencing spiritual success. And because we've been lied to by Barnes & Noble that spiritual success is worldly success, means that you have spiritual success. Check it out, because that's what they're doing with a lot of this new agey philosophy, is that, if you think the right way, you just feel the right way, and you're spiritual enough, the law of attraction will go to work, and you'll have everything you need. And we preach that at the Temple of Hip Hop too, on a level, but there's an overstanding here. God first, you know. But the world ain't teaching no God first. The world's teaching you first. They're teaching me first. And people are getting those spiritual books and then having worldly success. But they're not having spiritual success. I know, I've seen it. And I'll say it again. Worldly success is God's punishment. And it could seem like a great punishment, right? Who doesn't want to be world champion? I don't. I mean, but you know, a lot of people would say, yo, world champion. Yeah, I want to be a world champion someday. And good for them. Like I'm inspired by, you know, watching world champion athletes, you know. I get it. I'm not judging nobody here. I'm just saying this is a difference in philosophy. Because what we can measure as worldly success, which might be paying the bills, having a retirement fund, and having a car in the garage that runs, and you know, feeding our kids every day. That could be worldly success, right? Nothing wrong with that. But worldly success comes with a price, and I know because I used to pay that price. And it was devastating when I quit paying that price, that it took its pound of flesh from me. It was devastating because the world I had created, which I was rethinking, involved me working, 60 hours a week, getting, a day off a week, always sore, always tired, always beat up, no time to really meditate, no time to think of myself, no time to write or create or record, no time to express, no time for any of that, right? But I'm providing for my kids and my ex at the time. I was providing for the family. And I started rethinking that. I was like, man, how long am I supposed to last like this? Like, I don't really know how much longer this is supposed to happen. And all of a sudden I'm like Neo breaking out of the Matrix, and I'm seeing stuff, and I got Morpheus being, the teacher, KRS-One being Morpheus in that. And I'm seeing this whole new world as hip hop. And then I'm finding my place in it. I'm awakening up to my spirit inside. But I stopped working in that world. I stopped paying attention to the world of landscaping and paying bills and all that, and it all left me. And it left with a thunderous sound. And it was painful in my heart. I grieved. I cried. Why God? Why me? I went through all that, only to come out here on this other side like there are still consequences to stepping out of the world, and you need to know that. You need to know that there are consequences to the spiritual path. And that might be what's holding a lot of people back in life, because they subconsciously, we unconsciously know or are aware of the consequences. Now, I would have to do it again being here now. If somebody said, Zin, knowing what you know now, would you do it again? Of course I would. If I knew what I knew now, I would make way different moves. I would have mastered my environment. It would not have mastered me. But by letting it master me and then fighting back and learning about it, I mastered my environment. It does not master me now. I don't go anywhere. I don't feel uncomfortable when I'm out and about. I don't feel afraid or anxious when I'm out and about. I feel expressed. I feel expressed when I go to sleep. I sleep well because I expressed myself. It's the art of self-expression. So when I'm reinterpreting our environment, when we rethink our environment, it's about the image of empowering ourselves, okay? About empowering ourselves. And I did not feel empowered in the position I was in before. I felt empowered when I was like, I am hip hop. I am intelligent movement. I am an MC. I am a minister. I am the temple of hip hop. I am hip hop. I am Minister Zin Uru. I'm Zin Uru. I'm God. You start feeling that. You start feeling like, wow, man, my Father God created me as his son. What does that make me? Wow. And it's not just the guy in this body. It's the eternal spirit that lives on when he leaves this body. Reinterpreting our events. That's the position. It's your eternal spirit that begins reinterpreting its environment. And that's the hip hop conscious sight right there. It's the interaction of the eternal spirit, the God nature, the God force, the God sight, waking up within inside the body, looking through the body's eyes, and then saying, oh, wait a minute, Bruce Lee. Been around my life my whole time. Let me talk about Bruce Lee. There's value in talking about Bruce Lee. There's value in talking about Martin Luther King. Why? Because we're building community here. We're building culture here. This ain't just about MCing or rapping. That's a byproduct. See, this is something that most people don't know. So they focus on just the music, but they're not fulfilled culturally. MCing, like I'm a dope MC. I'm working on my 10th album right now. I got my 9th album ready to drop. Right? Like I'm dope. I could rock a party. I could rock a mic. I could write a song right now. I could freestyle. I could do all this stuff that I couldn't do before. But I only picked that up along the way. I only picked it up along the way, making music videos, recording myself, engineering. I like my engineering more than the people that I've heard that I'd have to pay for it. No offense to nobody. I just think my vocals sound better than people who are charging, $100 to $300 an hour to mix somebody's vocals. I know my shit. But that's beside the point. The point being, though, is that, when I said, my purpose is to further develop and preserve hip-hop culture, when I knew that was my purpose in life, all these other things I just started picking up along the way. Picked up theta along the way, found more of my purpose along the way. Picked up a whole lot of new ideas and abilities and skills along the way. MCing just happened to be one of those skills. It's one of my favorite skills. It's my artistic expression, so I'm not belittling it in any way. But because it was started with the sight, because it started with the reinterpretation of my environment, rethinking my world, as we rethink your world, the name of this message from the Minista, starts with rethinking yourself and your place in the world. What is your name? What do you call yourself when you speak your name into existence? Are you empowered? And it's not like a yes or no. We grow into our empowerment. We don't just wake up one day like disempowered and then wake up the next day empowered. We grow more and more into our consciousness each day. We move more and more into our empowerment each day. Each day more is revealed, and some is forgotten too. Like that's the incredible mystery, but it's not forgotten. It just goes into the unconscious awareness, because our awareness is a focus. Our awareness is like aware of certain things. It may be an expanded awareness, but it's still awareness of a certain focal point. And this is the way that we exist eternally, forever. We're always learning. We're always growing. We're always being. This is the purpose of life. And then we start there at the center, in the center of who we are. When we start there in that empowered self, and then we can take on a philosophy and say to ourselves, yo, I am hip hop. I know I am hip hop. I know I'm hip to my hop. I know I'm intelligent movement. My consciousness can look as a hip hopper. My conscious sight can reinterpret my environment. I can empower myself wherever I am with whatever I'm doing. I can find self-empowerment in that. The basics of, I work in a warehouse, but I like to rap on the side sometimes, yo. I'm a warehouse, I'm a warehouse worker, but I like to rap on I like to do it on my free time. I like to rap to, I'm an MC. I'm working at this warehouse right now, but I'm an MC. What's up? You see the difference there? Which one's first, the MC or the warehouse job? Which one's first? The hip hopper or the guy working in the world just to pay his bills? Which one's first? If it's the guy working in the world paying his bills, you're always looking at yourself. You're looking up to your higher self instead of being your higher self, right? I used to be that guy, so I know. I'm not criticizing nobody. And I'm just saying, just reinterpret the events. Just rethink your world right now. Well, what does that mean? It means like, you mean if I'm saying, man, I'm the warehouse worker, but I would love to be that guy over there, or, I'm that guy over there. I got this warehouse job right now, but I'm this guy over here. I'm Minister Zin Uru. What up, right? You see the difference in perspective there? Because once you start empowering yourself and changing that perspective, new opportunities are going to present themselves that are preventing themselves right now. New opportunities that are preventing themselves right now to you will present themselves to you by just changing your sight. It's not just your thinking, it's your sight. You got to know it, you got to be it, you got to feel it. And sometimes it takes a little time to get there. Remember the example when I said, when I first started these, and I would spend time beforehand visualizing the audience here, to where now I've done so many of them, I'm so used to the visualization, I come out here and I just start talking to the audiences that here, okay? Now, that's quite an interesting thing to happen, because it's changed the energy of how I present myself. I'm actually a better minister. I do better message from the ministers just having that sight just tapped into all the time. I don't have to work for that sight, but I did have to work for the sight in the beginning. And this is where it's at. So if you're reinterpreting and rethinking your world, start with where you're at and just rethink of who you are. Start where you're at and rethink who you are. You know you're an empowered being. You know you're a child of God. You may even know you are hip hop. Start there and stay there. Make that the core. Find that center. Find the center right there. I don't have to change nothing in my world but my perception of myself. And I have complete sovereignty and the ability to perceive myself as God would have me perceive myself. Oh, that's some empowerment right there, my nobility. Because all these opportunities are being prevented from you sitting down here looking up to your higher self. When we become our higher selves, all these opportunities when we're down here looking at our higher self going, oh man, I wish I could be my higher self. Oh man, my higher self is so cool. My higher self is so fly. My higher self is so fresh. to just being, I am my higher self. I am fly. I am fresh. I am cool. I am hip hop. I am dope. What up? To being that. That's it. And it might take 70 weeks. It might take 3 weeks. It might just take a few days. It might take a few minutes of time. But each day, seeing yourself in that empowerment. Can you imagine what that would happen in 1 year if you've committed yourself just to rethinking your internal environment? What will happen in a year? The beauty of it is that the outer world and those opportunities just start finding you. That's the wealth that we're talking about. Wealth, money is included in wealth, but wealth isn't included in money. There's plenty of people who have a lot of money who are not wealthy. There's plenty of people who don't have a lot of money who are extremely wealthy. It's about who you know. It's about what you know. It's about where you can go. It's about what you can do when you get there. What are your skills? What are your human skills? Can you communicate? Do you got a likable personality? Are you fun to be around? Most people don't want to think about that. Man, who wants to be around somebody who's miserable all the time? Oh man, not me. I probably was that guy, so hey, I used to be Mr. Miserable, right? No, but I've always had an outgoing personality too, so if I was miserable, I'd snap out of it. But no, for real though, being our true self, being our empowered nature, all of a sudden opportunities just start finding us. You don't have to go look for a new job. You might be inspired one day to go look for a new job and then just find that job right away because in spirit inspired you to go find that new job. Or you might just be sitting there one day at one job and somebody walks in and offers you a new job that's better for you and for your purpose. Offers you a way out, offers you a job that's in alignment with your purpose, that will teach you more about your purpose. Like, how are we limiting God? Why would we limit God? Why would we limit creation with an infinite way to create for us? Why would we limit that creation? But it's important that we put our principles into this. It's important to have principles in this because the world's kind of running around wild with knowing the law of attraction and knowing all these secrets, but not having the principles to back them up. So they'll do evil things. And I'm not saying don't have no worldly success or don't make your money or don't make your bread or don't be successful in the field that you're in. But what comes first, the worldly success or your spiritual success? See, that's the message right there. And when you put your spiritual success first, the worldly success can come and go. You're not attached to it. You know? I'm more popular now than I've ever been as Minister Zin Uru. But when I first started, okay, let's be transparent here. When I first started, I thought I was going to be a famous rapper. I was like, I thought that was just going to be, I thought that's just part of this thing, right? And I'd be like, I'm rapping for 6 months. I should have a hit record in 6 months. I believe this. And I didn't realize that I hadn't surrendered to God at that moment. I was still a slave to my own thinking. But as I started digging deeper into the gospel of hip hop, as I started digging deeper into my God force, into my true nature of who I really am, all that other stuff that I thought would have been worldly success became less and less important to where I don't think about it no more. And why? I know because the success that I feel spiritually, the things that I'm able to do spiritually, the energies that I'm working with, the events and the help that sets in motion in people's lives and being able to preserve hip hop like this and seeing the success of the temple of hip hop and the growth and all of that. Wow, man, you can't put a price tag on spirituality. You can't put a price tag on culture. You can't put a price tag on your gifts, your spiritual gifts. You can't put a price tag on your purpose. And everything else comes. Everything else that I need comes to me with grace and ease. Everything I need is just supplied by God. And it took a while and it was hard for me to get here. Well, hopefully, that somebody listening to these helps them on their path, make it a little easier than it was on me. But I don't want anybody to be under the illusion. Like, if you ain't willing to suffer for your purpose, I don't know. I knew God told me, God showed me the suffering was going to come. I was going to have to break through the suffering. And I did. And here I am. I know myself, and what is that worth? What is that worth to you? What is it worth to you to rethink your world? Because there's levels to this. I want to put it up here. Watch the levels to what the world is. But before I do that, let me put a disclaimer here. I don't agree with none of the definitions of what the world is in the American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition, okay? Like, I get it. I see it. But I tune into earth, right? Into earth. And they're trying to say it here. You'll see that the world is earth. But it's not. It's like they're like trying to say that the brain is the mind. No, the brain is the brain and the mind is the mind. The brain acts as like an interface for our sensory perceptions with the mind, okay? Just like the world is an idea, it's a thought pattern, it's a construct. It's not the earth though. The earth is like the mind. It's vast. It's mighty, it's alive, it's living, it's a being itself. The earth is not the world. So I want to put that disclaimer, but I do find this very interesting, especially when we're talking in philosophy and metaphysics and, rethink your world. Well, watch, put it up here now. Look at these definitions of world and what you get to rethink. And watch how amazing this gift is, because this is empowering right here. This lesson is an empowering lesson for this very reason. Rethink your world. Well, let's look at the definition of world. Definition number 1, the earth. So you get to rethink and reinterpret the earth. Put your hip-hop sight to earth. Definition number 2, what? The universe. Oh, that's everything in all of existence. The universe? Okay, rethink your universe. Rethink your earth. Rethink your universe. Oh, this is getting fun, my nobility. Rethink your universe? Okay. Wow, I'm a galactic ambassador on a mission to prison planet Earth, to free and enslave people whose minds have been enslaved by an AI technology. And I'm a living ambassador of light and sound here, crystalline light and sound, to free the minds and souls of those trapped here in earth. Like, see all of a sudden how empowering that could be? Just reinterpreting, rethinking your world. So you rethink the earth, you rethink the universe. Definition number 3, the earth and its inhabitants. Oh, okay, now I get to rethink the earth and its inhabitants. Okay, this is some mastermind. This is amazing. Like, look how empowering this is. See it. Definition number 4, the world is the inhabitants of the earth, the human race. So we get to rethink the inhabitants of the earth, the human race. We get to think hip hop. We get to add hip hop into the mix because we get to rethink your world. Definition number 5a, humankind considered as social beings, humans, society, Ministry, Archive, School, and Society. That's the world. Humankind considered as social beings, human society. Now that's more of the world definition when we talk about rethinking our human society. And part of that rethinking is not lying to ourselves and pretending that the oppressor is not the oppressor. I do not teach that. I do not preach that. I do not advocate that. I do not condone that. There is an oppressive force there. We must rethink our vision of what that oppressive force is and is not. However, in that thinking, we must not be found guilty of ignoring the true reality that there is a murdering oppressive force here present on planet Earth, in Earth. We must make that distinction. This is a real game we are playing here with real consequences. But nonetheless, God is with us. Definition number 5b of world. People as a whole, the public. See, this is everything. People, the earth, the universe, the inhabitants of the earth, human society. So when we say rethink the world, rethink your world, you get to rethink human society. Definition number 6, often world, a specified part of the earth,
the Western world. Hiphopia. I don't know. You could say that. See, the world is everything. The world is mind. The world is mind. Wow, okay, let's go back there. The world is mind. The earth is earth. The brain is the interface between the world is mind. Definition number 7, a part of the earth and its inhabitants as known at a given period in history. In the ancient world. So, once again, this hip-hop site gives us the ability to rethink the ancient world, the ancient mind. The world is mind. Definition number 8 of world, a realm or domain. I like this one, the world of imagination. Well, your imagination can reinterpret your imagination and reinterpret the world of imagination. Wow, this is so fascinating. This is so deep. This might be the deepest metaphysics of creative visualization of any of the message from the ministers, that's for sure. Definition number 9a, a sphere of human activity or interest, the world of sports. Once again, we can reinterpret and rethink human activity or interest. Definition number 9b, a class of group or people with common characteristics or pursuits, the scientific world. You rethink everything, a particular way of life. That's the world of the homeless. Wow. The world of the MC, the world of the hip-hopper. Definition number 11, all that relates to or affects the life of a person. He saw his world collapse about him. Reinterpret your world. I saw the world collapse around me and I saw God rise before me. See, I just interpreted that line right there. See, doesn't this sound hard? He saw his world collapse around him. But if you reinterpret your world, you can say, he saw the world collapse about him and all that remained was God standing face to face. That's how we rethink our world right there. Definition number 12, secular life and its concerns, a man of the world. Definition 13a, human existence. Definition 13b, a state of existence. Definition number 14, a large amount, much. Definition number 15, a celestial body such as a planet. Oh yeah, rethink those planets because they are not what NASA says. NASA lies. NASA is the great deceiver, has never told the truth and will never tell the truth. Shame on NASA. No, you get to rethink. You talk to Mars. Mars will tell you about Mars. Talk to Venus and Saturn. They will tell you about Venus and Saturn. You don't need any of these scientists that don't know nothing what the nature of the universe is, explaining to you what you can already receive through your direct sensory sovereign perception. Definition number 1, world is an adjective of or relating to the world, a world champion. Now we talked about that. Involving or extending throughout the entire world, a world crisis, in all respects, precisely in the world, used as an intensive. How in the world did they manage? Out of this world, informal, extraordinary, superb. See, they give you the more empowered ones down here at the bottom, but they're all empowering because we have the hip-hop site. Throughout the world, known the world over, world without end, forever. Wow, the world is forever. Middle English from Old English, wereld, see wide row in appendix. And I went to the appendix and pulled out Y row. I thought this was interesting. Y row, important derivatives of werewolf. Talk about change of perception. World, remember this is the one we're talking about. Virile, which is, yeah, you want that. Virtue, let's be virtuous, and virtuoso. I like that last one here, virtuoso, because that's what we're going to go into of the world. Because what we're looking at here is we're looking at the world as the universe, the earth, and we're going to rethink these things. And I really like that Wairo at the end, the virtuoso. And, you really want to be a virtuoso of your world and be the instrument in the hands of God. Let's put a picture. I got this picture up of Prince here. I had this as my wallpaper for about a year. I used that picture as an inspiration because I pictured myself as the guitar and God as Prince playing the guitar. I want to be the instrument of God, and God be able to play me like Prince plays a guitar, like that virtuoso. Or me as the virtuoso, I would like to play my environment the way that Prince plays a guitar. Like Prince's guitar work is he's a virtuoso. He's a master of it. He's transcended mastery of the subject. He is the music itself. He is the guitar itself. There's no separation between Prince and the guitar. They are one. They are a wholeness. They are creating a whole sound. And so when we want our environment to be a virtuoso of our environment, and so while we're rethinking our world, we're mastering certain aspects of our world. We're rethinking our world. We're reinterpreting our world with our sight. Let's be a virtuoso with that. Because a virtuoso can hit the right note with the kids, hit the right note with the dinner, hit the right notes with the physical activity, hit the right notes with the health, love, awareness, and wealth, hit the right notes with the peace and the prosperity, hit the right notes with the relationship, hit the right notes with the hip hop, hit those right notes as a virtuoso. See, it's all these things in our life. I am hip hop. Be a virtuoso of that and all that it means, because it's expansive. There's a lot to it. And so when we can rethink our world, we can rethink the planets and what they mean to us. I started rethinking what Saturn is. I took out all the old Greek, all the old, Saturn was devouring and eating the head off of his children. I just took out all of that colonized bullshit and just looked at the celestial body for what it is. It's a source of light. It's a conscious being of light. It's a sound of God. And all of a sudden I realized that what we see in our outer environment isn't just sunlight. We see Saturn light. It's all over. When we close our eyes, we can really see it. We don't just see sunlight and Saturn light. We see Venus light too. And we see star light. We see light in our environment. It's not just one spectrum. There's a full force spectrum of events going on here. So, because I have the hip hop sight, I could just look at the planets and reinterpret the planets for my consciousness, for my expression. I don't need nobody else to be interpreting the planets for me. Now, somebody has something good to say, I'm always down to hear it. I'm always down to learn something, because sometimes people and things and events reveal some fly shit to somebody else that I like to learn about. Not one of us is made to, we all have individual sights and gifts, and I love learning. That's why reading the gospel of hip hop, I read the gospel of hip hop because it's inspiring to me. It gives me a sight. It helps me on my path and my quest. It helps me be a better me. It helps me help others become better them. But all that to say is, in our sovereignty, we have the sovereign right to reinterpret hip hop and see what hip hop is, and then put it to the test. Put it to the test. Because when we want to really see something for what it is we want to get down to the truth of the matter. And what is the truth of the matter? Well, the truth of the matter is never changing. The truth is the truth, whether or not you like me. The truth remains the truth. So when we look at the truth of the matter, we really want to get to the heart of who we are and the truth about what we were created to be and the truth of our world. The truth is that we are very, very, very powerful beings. And the only reason the world looks like it does is because we have convinced ourselves and we have been convinced by others to create a world that's going in the wrong direction. And we are so powerful that we created a world that's gone in the wrong direction. And all we need to do now is create a world that goes in the right direction. Okay? It's all there is. It's the sovereignty of the Christ. It's the sovereignty of God. It's the sovereignty of the Great Spirit. It's the sovereignty of truth. It's the sovereignty of freedom. It's the sovereignty of true and real, everlasting, unconditional love. We are here in this time and space with this opportunity to reinterpret our reality, to rethink our world. And not often does something come along like hip hop as an example, as the example here, of a community that fits our needs, that reflects who we are. I knew hip hop was my community, but when I started rolling with the teacher and started interacting and interfacing with the community all over the world, oh, wow. I realized that like every part of my being has always and will always be hip hop and be intelligent movement, be hip to its hop. This is where I was received. This is where I'm continually received. The world rejected me, hip hop received me. Because I reinterpreted the world, the old world rejected me, and the new world opened up to me, hip-hopia. I was rejected by the Christian church. I was rejected by the scholarship, the school system. I was rejected by corporate America. I was rejected by construction America. I was rejected by any institution, anything I went into except hip-hop. But only hip-hop could receive me because I could only receive hip-hop because it's what I am. So if you feel like you've been rejected, just reinterpret that. You're glad because it would have been punishment to be accepted by the world and rejected by hip-hop. But to be here in hip-hop, as hip-hop, teaching hip-hop, and to the future hip-hoppers out there, I'm telling you, rethinking your world works. And let's go up here in the gospel of hip hop. This is in the fourth overstanding, the H law. This is in the wealth section. I'll put it up here on the screen. You can turn to, let's see, what page is this here? This is page 263, and we're going to start with paragraph 54. We're reading 40 paragraphs here, so I might take a little break in between, and let's see how far we get. So go ahead and open up your Gospel of Hip Hop. And of course, the Gospel of Hip Hop is written by the teacher KRS-One and presented to the Temple of Hip Hop. And I, Minister Zin Uru, am a recognized intellectual and spiritual contributor in the Gospel of Hip Hop. I was there while it was being written. My ideas are in the book. And I'm so grateful to the teacher for the painstaking hours and time he spent writing this incredible book. And I do hope that those of you who have a copy, you are not just reading it, that you are putting it to use. For these reasons, the Temple of Hip Hop starts the training of its members with the comprehension of hip hop as a collective consciousness, a unique urban attitude, an empowering identity, an international culture, a life improvement strategy, a creative self-evident awareness, and an international cultural movement, not just music or even entertainment. Such an awareness brings light to those whose grievances are ignored and identity rejected. Such an approach to hip-hop is the seat of political power and the birth of true freedom for us. With this new sight, we can begin transforming ourselves, our environment, and eventually our personal circumstances. For these reasons, the Temple of Hip Hop encourages hip hoppers to think beyond the normal social definitions and conditions of things. Rethink your world. Hey, sound familiar? That's the title of this message from the Minista. Rethink your world. Hip hop's spiritual sight transforms subjects and objects for the enhancement and protection of the hip hopper. Yes, the current financial situation in the United States is terrible. It's terrible. And this was written in 2009, or even before that, but came out in 2009. The current financial situation in the United States is terrible for many families. And it seems like our government and many global corporations today just don't care. Or do they? More importantly, can they? Nations grow and societies do move forward. As we have seen many times with the rise of America's homeless population, if you cannot keep up, you will be left behind, trampled, even eaten. Whether this is right or just or fair is irrelevant. The object here is survival of the richest. Therefore, let us not personally complain about high prices. Let us outthink, or rather rethink, the whole situation we may be experiencing. Remember, it is not what happens to you that is real. It is actually your interpretation of what is happening to you that is real. You decide to be happy or miserable based upon your own interpretations of life events. Oh, say that again. You decide to be happy or miserable based upon your own interpretation of life's events. Take that responsibility and grab that and be that. Everything is perception, and perception is based upon knowledge. If your nation's prices have become too high for you, it only means that that part of your nation has become smarter than you. They are using certain techniques, skills, and knowledge to render you dependent upon not only their products, but also the prices for such products. But there is always another way around higher prices. Your task then is not to complain, but to outsmart the situation by applying some kind of skill, technique, or knowledge capable of making high prices low prices for you. You simply need to either make more money, which usually requires the acquiring of more knowledge and more skill, or you need coupons, saving tags, and sale days. Either way, you can always rethink your condition. If you find yourself unable to make ends meet, it may mean that it is time for you to invent something or engage in some new experience that clearly requires you to adopt new skills and new knowledge, or even new relationships. Well, that last one is a powerful one there. Know this: poverty is about applied ignorance, while riches are about applied knowledge. If you really don't know where the money is, you cannot have it. Prices are going up because most people in the world can afford them. If prices are too high for you, it only means that the world is passing you by. Everyone is not as poor as you are. You may be poor simply because you don't know where money is. You are not part of that money-making community. You don't speak their language, nor do you hang out in their circles. And why? Maybe because you don't believe you can. Inspired by the Spirit of God, hip-hop was about the renaming and redeveloping of a corny, bland, and segregated society. Our ultimate transformation was of the entire American mainstream popular culture itself, and this is what saved us. We simply perceived our world differently, and suddenly everything changed around us. Early hip-hoppers realized intuitively that everything was also something else. This spiritual sight awareness gave us the ability to begin transforming our surrounding subjects and objects in an effort to create new ways to survive and develop in a society that ignored and rejected our very existence. My nobility, this is what the sight is about. To create new ways to survive and develop in a society that ignored and rejected our very existence. Wouldn't that be great if we had 100 houses in this complex that were hip-hoppers? And what we could do for our survival and development, because this society is ignoring and rejecting our very existence. The original hip-hop site began with the conscious awareness that everything was also something else, and that everything could be renamed and reinterpreted and thus reused or modified in its use. With this kind of awareness, we were instantly transformed from insignificant and rejected to important, free, and accepted. No one handed us such validations. We simply declared ourselves fresh, and within immense poverty and injustice, we were made fresh again. Our new perception of reality, sight, would transform the very clothes on our backs, our shoes, our language, everything. For example, what was once a rag used to wipe sweat or clean dishes, or what was once an insignificant construction worker's boot, were transformed into important fashion statements worth millions of dollars and worn upon the heads and feet of many mainstream clothing models, sports personalities, artists, and politicians alike, just because we hip-hop gave these products a value they did not originally have. Such a transformation occurred when we were inspired to give our dirty rags, worn shoes, old jackets, and even outdated furniture value. By seeing our dirty rags, torn clothing, and broken furniture as valuable, We escape poverty by reinterpreting the value of what we already had. My nobility. By seeing our dirty rags, torn clothing, and broken furniture as valuable, we escaped poverty by reinterpreting the value of what we already had. In addition, hip-hop brought with it new techniques, skills, and knowledge. And with these new skills and techniques, we outsmarted the poverty of our parents and carved out a whole new life path for ourselves. And poverty is not always about money, my nobility. People live in spiritual poverty. People live in mental poverty. People live in hopeless desperation, even if they have money sometimes. So poverty, expand the awareness of what we're talking about here as poverty. We're not just talking about money as poverty. Being without knowledge or without the right proper use of knowledge or the right knowledge is poverty. Likewise, by seeing the expensive clothes, and this is key right here, by seeing the expensive clothes, music, foods, and tastes of the mainstream as corny, no longer cool or even necessary, we devalued the riches of the world and forced the mainstream popular culture to accept our values. Oh, this is a history lesson right here. We simply stopped trying to participate in the 1970s and 1980s mainstream, and everyone came to us. This is what hip-hop's political power is. It dictates what is valuable in urban areas. It defines the urban reality of the hip-hopper for the empowerment of the hip-hopper. In fact, it was the strength of our collective spirit rebelling against what was being forced taught to us that first introduced our hip-hop awareness or sight. Read that again, my nobility. When something like this is where this is the spirit, when we talk about what we're preserving, the intention and spirit of hip-hop. In fact, it was the strength of our collective spirit rebelling against what was being forced taught to us that first introduced our hip-hop awareness or sight. We simply stopped participating in our own oppression by not valuing the music, art, fashion, foods, politics, education, etc. of the 1970s mainstream. This is why the continuous promotion of mainstream values like expensive cars, clothes, jewelry, houses, etc., without the balance of cultural values like faith, courage, and wisdom weakens hip-hop's political position in the world. It makes our people devalue their own possessions and self-worth in an effort to acquire something outside of their own social political reach. Start with valuing ourselves, hip-hopper, and value hip-hop. Value what we have and see everything the world's offering us as it is. It's corny. The way of the world is corny. And those who succeed in corniness get the corniness they deserve. When you see some corny ass artist who says he's a rapper and you just look at him, you're like, that fool is corny. They will eventually be seen as corny by the whole world if they're really corny. Paragraph 69. So, while we chase the temporary values of the mainstream exploits the everlasting values of our souls, and this causes our poverty. The true hip-hopper values hip-hop. Notice the spelling. True hip-hoppers reject the reliability and authority of mainstream commercial resources and values as valuable, for they are truly worthless when compared to the everlasting and priceless essence of hip-hop itself. Although the American mainstream of the 1970s and 1980s would tell us that our material possessions were worthless, and that hip-hop itself would not last but 3 more years, we rejected such opinions and appreciated the little bit that we did have. 30 years later, we discovered that the ability to change and or improve one's situation was based upon one's ability to transform the things and ideas already available to oneself. We did not accept our condition. We changed it. It was here. Look at that. We did not accept our condition. We changed it. Don't accept your condition. Change it. You have the power. It was here that we learned how hip-hop's political power, even economic power, begins when you can appreciate and value what you already have, as opposed to envying the resources and achievements of those who do not respect you. Self-empowerment begins when you can bring value to those people, places, things, and events already around you or in your possession. We simply took responsibility for ourselves. We did not accept the conditions of our parents. We decided to become active participants in our own survival. We simply gave ourselves value. We began to define ourselves. There's that self-definition, define yourself. That is part of rethinking your world. Our ability to rethink our world has to do with defining ourselves. How do you define? What is the definitions that you create for yourself? When you say, I am hip-hop, that is part of defining ourselves. Know this, poverty begins when you envy things outside of your immediate reach. Look at that. Poverty begins when you envy things outside of your immediate reach. Wealth begins when you learn to value and make use of those things that you already have. Poverty begins when you envy things outside of your immediate reach, and wealth begins when you learn to value and make use of those things that you already have. Oh, paint that on the wall, my nobility. Return to that one right there again and again and again. That's why it's highlight. This is why early hip-hoppers would avoid crossing over from the underground to the mainstream. Crossing over into the mainstream meant that you no longer had the ability to define yourself. Through your voluntary participation in an environment that did not truly respect you, you ultimately devalued yourself. By remaining independent with the power to define ourselves and our environment, we maintained our ability to compete. This is the only real reason hip-hoppers were accepted into the mainstream arena. It was and still is because in competition, we had hip-hop was a force that no one in any mainstream market could compete against. So as the old saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. And join us they did. No mainstream business that depended upon urban areas to survive was able to compete with the force which hip-hop exploded into the national scene with. Therefore, many hip-hoppers were immediately paid large sums of money, which was only a fraction of their true worth, before they realized the magnitude of what God had really blessed them with. Only now have we realized that the ability to compete is the essence of power in business and politics. Indeed, integration and conformity weakened our ability to remove our oppression using our unique business and political competition tactics. In fact, even though we were poor, we were not impoverished. With little or no money, we still lived well. We may have not been rich, but we were indeed wealthy. We lived wisely, not poorly. Ironically, it was our lack of money and access that protected us from the excessive and often toxic lifestyles of the rich. The idea of eating bacon, eggs, sausage, butter, cereal, milk, toast, and orange juice all at once as a balanced breakfast was ignored by most low-income hip-hoppers of the 1970s and 80s who ate oatmeal, cream of wheat, and cold cereals instead. That's all of us. I already know that. Certain professional exercise techniques that were later proved to be damaging to the physical body were also ignored by early hip-hoppers. Our aerobics was breaking, popping, locking, walking, handball, stickball, and basketball, which the mainstream would later incorporate into its plans for a healthy body. Attuned hip-hoppers who could just afford the steak and eggs advice dined on fish, fruits, juices, and vegetables long before it was a popular health trend to do so. Because of our low incomes, we were already walking, jogging, and riding bicycles long before such activities became popular health trends. Later in life, we learned that not having access to mainstream living actually saved us from certain diseases and sicknesses that were caused by the excessive lifestyle of the American mainstream in the 1970s and early 80s. We learned early that in the short term, the lifestyles of the rich and famous might have looked appealing and desirable to many, but in the long term, such lifestyles prove to heighten one's chance of disease, stress, and injury. Know this. Sometimes it is those things that you do not have, as well as those places that you do not go, that are actually saving and enhancing your life. As contradictory as it may sound, it was actually our low incomes that protected us. And this is not about living poorly. This is about living simply, living according to your means, in proportion to your work. This has always been the balance for those communities born in urban environments. Be in the mainstream, but not of the mainstream. Be content with the mastery of your chosen skill and live within the means that your skill provides. This leads to peace. Word. so much knowledge and information in just those 6 pages that's worth meditating on for the rest of the week. I mean, just wow. I was reading that and I was like, yo, this is the message from the Minista this week. Rethink your world. And as when we read the definition of world, and just pretty much meaning everything in creation gets to be reinterpreted by you. Nothing is off limits. You can reinterpret everything. And then to realize that empowerment begins by reinterpreting and just accepting who you are and where you are and what we have, accepting where we are, who we are, and what we have right now as valuable. Not envying those things that are out of our reach right now, but just accepting who we are and putting value on who we are and what we already have in our environment. That's the empowerment. And like when he said, if you can't beat him, join him, and how the mainstream couldn't beat hip hop, so they had to join it back in the 80s. I remember with just rap music, like Burger King had a rap ad, Mervyn, Sears, everybody had a rapper doing something in their ad. Rap was in everything. People were breakdancing. I mean, it was just so funny seeing how much hip hop influenced the 80s. And it wasn't the other way around. And how empowering that was. It's just so much to grow up in the hood. Like those who grew up in the hood, they may have a disadvantage in the world, but if you grew up in the hood, you got an advantage in hip hop. Like I didn't grow up in the hood. I grew up in low income suburbs. Maybe there's a few stabbings, but it wasn't like the hood. But those who grew up in like the hood, they could rap about their hood life, and the rest of the world sees that as valuable. They want to hear those stories about hood life. And I mean, see how hip hop takes what would seem to the world is to be impoverishment and be the worst, and to turn it into something valuable, and not just valuable to you, because once you see it as valuable, the rest of the world sees it as valuable. The rest of the world sees the Stop the Violence movement. We champion the Stop the Violence movement. The world sees that as valuable. When we go to get these proclamations for Hip Hop Appreciation Week and things, Big Up Vicious Technique and Desire down there in Miami for that. They get these proclamations though from the cities. Cities recognize the value that hip hop brings to a community. And that's something that we can keep building off of as a community as we grow. We can get more and more cities to recognize the positive impact that hip hop has always had on any community. Hip hop has had a positive impact on the world. The world is a better place, more colorful place, it sounds better because of hip hop. Hip hop is the salvation of the world. I mean, there's no denying it. Hip hop is about peace, love, unity, having fun, health, love, awareness, and wealth, peace and prosperity, community, the future, Martin Luther King's vision, Bruce Lee's philosophies. Hip hop is about the Christ. Hip hop is Zin Uru. Hip hop is about patience. Hip hop is the teacher. The teacher is hip hop. And when we can reinterpret subjects and objects in our environment, what we can do with that empowerment as individuals and collectively, it's time we wake up to that. And it's time we inspire ourselves first and then inspire one another with that. And I know
A lot of what I'm saying is going away over the people of my time's head, but not everybody. There's some of you out there getting it in my time. But I do know in the future, as the world around us is collapsing, and those who are collapsing with the world, you stand with the New World Order, you fall with the New World Order. The way you don't fall by not standing with the New World Order is to reinterpret the world, rethink your world. You rethink your world and you're outside of the New World Order. Rethink your world. Re-empower yourself. Who are you in this story? You are the savior of your neighborhood, of your family, of those closest to you. You are the savior of your home, of your spouse, of your children. That's you. There's so much empowerment in this. Redefine it. Rethink your world. Rethink who you are and rethink your place in it. That's what we're doing this week. And it's something that it's continuously doing it. It's not you just make up one definition and that's over. No, this is a process. I'm continually rethinking my environment. And, in closing, I don't want to forget this point. This is the main point of it. It's not just about rethinking inside of ourselves. Then it's about adding value to these things we see outside of ourselves. Like I added value to this room. This room was just a living room, and it was valuable as a living room, but now it's a now it's a hip hop archive. And only that, it's Minister Zin Uru's hip hop archive. That's valuable. Like this poster, just because it's mine, because of who I am, because of the value that I bring, this poster is more valuable than the day it was bought. Somebody would pay more money for this because it was owned by Minister Zin Uru and it's up on his wall in his archive. That makes this more valuable. This was a piece of paper and some ink, but I hand drew this. That made this paper more valuable. I added value to something because I interpreted this piece of paper as the temple of hip hop and graffiti. See, so we're adding value to our environment by reinterpreting it, by rethinking our world. We add value to our world. We add value to ourselves. Like the old construction workers boot the teacher was talking about. Early hip-hoppers saw Timberlands, which was just a construction workers boot. And because it became cool, Timberland is it's a fashion industry icon now. Or the old rags he's talking about, the do-rags. Used to get them for what, 25 cents, and now, people make fancy do-rags for, $20-30 for hand-painted ones. People start reinterpreting their environment. I only buy used clothes or cheap discount clothes. I don't buy nothing. I don't pay full price for nothing. Just put that out there. That's how I reinterpreted my environment. This is interesting. New cars. A lot of the mechanics who are working on the cars that have been made since for the past 5 or 6 years, but really like the past 7 years, now that those cars are running out of warranties and people are having to pay personal mechanics to go work on those cars, they're finding out that all these plastic molded computer money-saving things and putting plastic engine parts, that the engines don't last as long as cars did back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, even 2010s and 12. The older Toyotas and the older Hondas and things like that, these cars are becoming very valuable because new cars are becoming so expensive, and not only expensive, that they're made with lesser quality parts than older cars were. And so there's a certain hip-hop site where you get an older car and you fix it up, and then that car becomes cooler than buying a brand new car. That's the whole idea, that you don't have to pay full price for everything. You don't have to have what the world wants you to have, the lifestyles of the rich and famous. People would, if I was able to get 100 homes and 100 hip-hoppers I know, and we all bought all the homes around this area, and then we reinterpreted it and rebuilt it, it would be more valuable than any neighborhood in America. More people would want to live here than in Beverly Hills or Black Hawk or wherever else. More people would want to live here than in the richest areas of Earth, because this would be the real riches. Because it's not about the building itself, it's what's contained in the building that is the true value. It's our interpretation of what we create that adds the true value to what it is. So what in your environment can you reinterpret as something and make $1 million enterprise out of reinterpreting something in your environment?
What new fashion statement is cheap that you can go buy, that people can purchase, that could become a multi-billion dollar industry, and then make it, and if you're savvy with it, because that was happening on accident, no, you patent it, you get the rights to it, you get it the ground floor, so you make those millions. How many billions did Timberland make from hip hop and then not even really give anything back to hip hop? I don't know. Maybe Timberland does give something back to hip hop, but not publicly they don't. They just took all the money from hip hop, and then acted like hip hop had nothing to do with it, when hip hop gave them who they are. So hip hop is so valuable. And what is it that's valuable with hip hop? It's the sight. It's the sight that creates value where no value appears to be. It's not that value doesn't exist, it's just that we don't see it. So when we use that hip hop sight to see the value in our immediate environment, and our immediate environment becomes valuable, we are already in an invaluable environment just by reinterpreting that environment. So no matter where you're at or what we are experiencing right here and right now in whatever time and space you are in, just simply reinterpreting that, rethinking your world will add value and empowerment to your world. And then the shifts will just start happening. It's amazing to watch. It's amazing to witness. It's amazing to be hip hop, my nobility. So as you go forward this week, in uninterrupted health, love, awareness, and wealth, peace and prosperity, I say to thee, we are hip hop. And there it is. Hey! Ha ha.